Welcome to the second instalment of the Social Nutrition Masterclass. What we're going to be doing is going into the longer term solutions that are needed. So there's again many different examples here, but we're essentially not focusing now on the stuff that happens maybe in one meal or one day. We're going to look at things that happen that affect maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 days, or maybe a week or 2 weeks. So just to give you a few examples, just again so that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. When it comes to, let's say, there's a long weekend away, you've booked, I don't know, a little holiday, a little getaway, a city break or something with your family or your loved ones or whatever that looks like. It could be something like going on holiday. So it could be maybe an all-inclusive holiday for a couple of weeks. Also periods of time that happen throughout the year as well. So if you celebrate Christmas, that could actually start to look like a whole period of time rather than a one-day event. So we have Christmas, and then we also have the New Year's Eve parties and things like that. You might do some things on Boxing Day. Between Christmas and New Year, maybe you're meeting up with family and friends. Maybe before Christmas, there's like office parties and there's a party at the gym, and again, maybe you're meeting up with friends and things. So it's easy to see how that period of time, there's lots of peaks in the socialising side of things, the social events that take place. So again, we're just going to give that as an example and include that in this because, again, even though Christmas is, of course, just one day and New Year's Eve is just one day, it can actually become a little bit more of a longitudinal period of time in those social peaks. So we talked a little bit about calorie banking before, and what we can actually do is we can actually just have a little bit of a change in mindset on the weeks that are leading up to the event, or let's say going away on holiday, for example. So if you know you're going to be away for 2 weeks and you know that you're going to enjoy yourself, you're going to not really restrict yourself too much or anything like that, and you just know that you're probably going to put a few pounds on as a result of that, that's absolutely fine. But what we can do as a strategy for, let's say, 3, 4, 5 weeks leading up to that is we can just accelerate that rate of weight loss. So let's say on average you're losing maybe a pound and a half a week at the moment, and you just want to nudge that up a little bit so that you're losing 2, maybe 2.5 pounds, just as a little mini intensive period on the run up to your holiday. So this works really well psychologically for a lot of people because you've sort of already lost that sort of weight that you may be going to put on whilst you're on holiday before you even get there. So even if you do put 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds on, you might have lost that on top of your normal results before the holiday even begins. So it's like a complete sort of I don't have to think about this now type situation. So that works really well for some people. Again, you've just got to make sure that you understand how many calories, your calorie targets and things like that. And also the sort of calorie deficit that you're going to be in. If you're losing in and around a pound per week, you're in a calorie deficit of minus 500 calories on average each day. And of course, over the course of the week on average, that means you're in a calorie deficit of minus 3,500 calories, just to paint a little picture there for you. So, of course, it can fluctuate. It doesn't have to be exactly minus 500 calories per day. It could be 0. You could be in calorie maintenance for day 1, and then day 2, the calorie deficit's 1,000 calories, for example. So the average over those 2 days is again minus 500 calories. So you can have little peaks and troughs throughout the week overall, and over those weeks, that's no problem. So you don't have to freak out about every single calorie, of course. But again, if you're wanting to double that rate of weight loss for a 4 or 5 weeks, let's say, leading up to the holiday, you just need to know that you're in the calorie deficit on average now of minus 1,000 calories per day, or on average over the week, it would be minus 7,000 calories, just to give you an idea. Okay, so whilst you're away, let's say you're wanting a solution for before the holiday, which we've just discussed, and also whilst you're away on holiday, there's a few different areas that we can really sort of hone in on and really think about. So I want to give you a few key areas and we'll go into those now. So number one, even just little things like being at the airport, just limit those high calorie breakfasts and high calorie convenience food and fast food that's always available in the airport. Alcoholic drinks, we spoke about those in the previous module. Again, this directly applies here. So if you are going to have a quick drink, before you head onto the plane, there's lots of different options there for you. And again, that can just save a chunk on the day, and also coming back as well. So making sure that whilst you're away, you're staying as active as you can each day. So again, I think it's an amazing thing to do, especially if it's like a beach type holiday, walks along the beach, walks around the city, things like that. Just making sure that you're going out sightseeing, but little does everybody know you're also racking up thousands of additional steps as well. You could maybe add in an extra exercise class if that's available too. So just a really steady exercise class, just to create a little buffer for a few days whilst you're away on that holiday. That can also help and contribute as well. So just being mindful about your nutrition generally, and in particular your hunger signals, and just be really, really mindful of like how hungry you are when you're on holiday. Just because there's sort of an all-you-can-eat all-inclusive buffet, for example, it's so easy to just walk down the buffet and just add loads of things onto the plate. It's piled high and you've just got loads of things on there, when in actual fact, if you just took a brief moment just to check in with thinking about how hungry you are, in actual fact it might only be a 5 or a 6 on the hunger scale. So however, the plate might look like you're 10 out of 10 hungry. So just being a little bit more mindful can go a long way, especially if you do that each day. It's something that can be done throughout the whole holiday. Choosing a small plate, again, it sounds ridiculous, but there's research that's taken place on this. People who are eating from smaller plates also consume less calories in total than people who are consuming food from larger plates. Even if they've got full access to as much as, they can go back as many times as they want, they still have fewer calories consumed just by using a smaller plate. So again, we briefly touched upon this in the last module as well. So straight away, just thinking about a big chunk of lean protein on that plate. So that takes up maybe a good chunk, maybe a third of your plate. Half of the plate with salad, vegetables, things like that, roast carrots and roasted parsnips and whatever's available. Just take a look at those. There's always a veg section there, and making sure that all of your plate almost is filled with that really good quality, tasty, lean protein source, loads of salad and or veg, and then the rest. So the slower digesting carbs, maybe, for example, maybe a couple of chips or bread or whatever that looks like. But when you do it in that order, it just means that the total calorie content of that particular plate is going to be much lower. So again, take a look at the snacks. Eating a few handfuls of peanuts and a slice of crusty bread and butter. You just do that each day throughout the holiday. There's hundreds of calories on that day potentially being added, and it's not really giving you anything. It's not really contributing too much. And then, of course, if you do that and maintain that over the course of a week or 2 weeks, again, thousands of additional calories, and it's easy to see where we've put on those additional 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds, for example, whilst you're away. Nothing wrong with an ice cream, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But on certain days, maybe you just think, we've got to get ice cream with the kids most days here. Maybe just think have 1 or 2 each week rather than 7 each week, and just swapping that out for something like a refreshing sorbet that's way lower in calories per gram. Lower calorie drinks as well, making sure that you're staying hydrated, especially in the warmer climates. We've just got to think, are you dehydrated? Is it something that you need to take a look at there? You could actually have dehydration as the problem there rather than hunger. Or it could be lower energy levels and just feeling a bit rubbish and lethargic. It's actually because you're dehydrated. It's not because you need an extra snack or a sweet pick-me-up during the day, for example. So lastly, I just wanted to talk about this really important topic. And overall, if you might want to adopt this strategy as well. So of course we've gone into the nitty-gritty strategies to help with literally what meal you're going to have from that takeaway, or how you're going to approach your nutrition for that 2 weeks away on holiday, or that catch up with a friend over having a coffee. These are really, really useful and impactful strategies. However, some people would be much better placed to have a much more big picture and longer term mentality. So of course there's 52 weeks in the year. So some people actually go, do you know what? This is a long term thing for me. I love the gym. I love my nutrition. I stay on track generally as much as I can, as many weeks of the year as possible. However, in reality, over the course of a year, even if you have 5 weeks where you're either maintaining, so you're not losing weight and maybe that's your goal right now, you are maintaining your weight, or maybe having small gains, so small gains in body mass or body fat, it's still less than 10% of the whole year. So providing that the other 90% of the year you're doing fantastic things and chipping away at those goals and results, on the grand scheme of things, if you want to go on holiday and think, I probably will put on a few pounds, and I'm not that fussed about focusing on it because I have this longer term big picture mentality around my results and my goals, that's absolutely fine too. If you're one of those people that goes away on holiday and you want to maintain your results, that's absolutely 100% fine too. There's no right or wrong answer there. You just have to have a think about what sort of category you fall into and how you want to approach it. So again, having that long-term thinking, carefully mapping out your holidays in advance and thinking, okay, cool, I'm probably going to be away for roughly 4 or 5 weeks this year maybe. And I'm just not that fussed about what happens on those weeks because I know that the other, it could be 47, 48, 49, 50 weeks of the year, I'm doing fantastic things, so I'm not actually going to be too fussed whilst I'm away. Happy days, no problem whatsoever. But again, just like we said, whichever route that you decide to take, make sure that you're making that decision intentionally and that you're comfortable regardless either way. So a really, really interesting standpoint to think about, really. So, I put the question to you, which category would you fall into? And it could be a bit of a mixture as well. So some holidays, let's say you've got a race or something or a competition coming up, but you've also got a holiday, 4 or 5 weeks before that, and you just don't want to disrupt your results to a great degree because you've got this important event coming up. So maybe in and around that sort of period of time at that part of the year, you decide to adopt I'm going to make sure I stay as on track as possible. I don't go overboard with the calories. I stay, I keep my fitness up. I keep the exercise classes up whilst I'm away. The walks along the beach, the sightseeing and lots of steps around the city and things like that we mentioned earlier. We're absolutely going to be doing that and nailing that as much as we can. We'll have a few drinks and like a few ice creams and maybe a little bit more food than normal, but I'm going to be very mindful of my results, and that's fine. Again, there could be other periods of the year where there's not really any, targets or race days or competition days or things like that on the agenda. So again, it could be a little bit of a mixture. So hopefully you've enjoyed this masterclass. Hopefully you've got all the tools now to go out into the world, and no matter what happens over 52 weeks of the year, this year and the next year and every year for decades to come, you've got all the strategy now that you need to make informed decisions about either staying on track whilst you're away and doing that very effectively, staying on track if you have a social occasion coming up or a few drinks or somebody leaves work or a wedding anniversary coming up and you're going to go out for that meal and you want to stay on track at the same time, you have the strategies to do that now. All the very best, and I wish you all the best going forward.